All right, let me start with just giving you a little of a word picture here. Um, Scenario. Uh, Typical day in the Grazier household. Um, I am kind of taking the responsibility of taking the kids and picking up the kids from school. Um, you know, Kids are grumpy first thing in the morning. There's, ranting and raving about breakfast to make and lunches to make and chores to do and picking up after themselves and all this stuff. So everyone's in a hustle and a hurry and try to get them out the door so they're not late to school. Get them out to school, um, do a full day of work, pick up the kids, come home. Uh, my bride had just gone to the grocery store. There's bags of groceries all over the kitchen floor that need to be unloaded. My son wants a fruit roll up. I tell him no. He throws a fit. I ask him to help, put the groceries away. He says no. There's an argument there. My wife starts then asking for us to unload the groceries. She then goes to the calendar that hasn't been updated, but so she wants to update it, and she's asking me for dates and times and locations and plans of all these things. But my mind's on putting the groceries away and then cooking dinner because we have to get my daughter to jujitsu at 5:30. We have to be out the door by 5. And who's going to then go pick up my daughter at gymnastics at 6:30? And like, there's all these things going on, right? My wife has all these things in her brain, and I have the one thing on my brain is to put the groceries away and then cook dinner and then get my daughter out the door and do all that, get the kids out, pick the kids up, come back from gymnastics after my daughter has done that, and walk into my wife folding a huge bundle of laundry that's been sitting there for a couple of days, and she then says, "Hey, that'd be sure nice if someone else could help with the laundry around here," and that then starts to point fingers, and the task list starts to get compared with each other, and that causes an argument, and we both go to bed angry. Real talk.
Good podcast. We'll see you guys next week. And yeah, man. I mean, I think it's pretty standard, right?
Pretty
I
standard, right?
think you know, things have changed. I'll tell you what's fascinating is as we dive into this, there's context for all that too, but I have fully some I have redefined roles as a man and as a dad and a husband, particularly since getting out of the military. And I used to say, "Oh man, the military. I mean, it is what it is. Like I leave in the morning, go do military stuff, come back." That wasn't fully true. There are multiple nights where I would, whether it was on the weekend or nights, I'd make breakfasts and grilled dinner. I'd take the kids over to the park. I'd spend, get them out of Erica's hair. I'd take them different places, do different stuff, right? And so there's always time. It depends how you prioritize and what you do. Obviously, deployment's very different than that. But but most people, most people, the normal day of their life, the normal year of their life does not involve deploying overseas to, do some war fighting or anything like that.
Yeah.
And so I think there's always time, there's always things, there's always ways that we contextualize these. But as I've embraced multiple roles, other roles, I would say even quote unquote traditional homemaking roles. My life has also it's got more complicated, it's gotten more joyful, and there's things that I've found that I really enjoy, like cooking dinner. I've always done kind of the breakfast thing ever since we've been back in Colorado for the last couple of years,
Yeah,
but
same.
doing dinners and different things, and I enjoy it, right? And there's different aspects of being a provider that that I really enjoy. I started coaching my kids' sports, which is highly frustrating, but also it's a lot of fun, right? I enjoy it.
My
I enjoy
my
pouring
son's
into them.
team is 0-7 right now.
Dude, Noah's flag football team gets destroyed. But then on the other side of that, Jake's team is undefeated
Nice.
in flag football, which is a very different experience for the entire family.
Yeah.
Um, but I guess all that being said, it's interesting because there's it, this is something that I was reading in of Boys and Men. This idea of understanding not only ourselves but understanding the other sex, and being our wife, and how our wives. What I love about that book is he talks about biology in the book, and he says it's not nature or nurture. It's nature and nurture, right? Like to deny biology. I know it's so super unpopular and such a weirdly uh such a weirdly polarizing topic, biology, like
Yeah.
of all things, right? And I get all the context for gender and all these conversations, but one of the things he highlights, he says to deny biology in the conversation is silly. It's stupid. Is the same as denying nurture, right? Like there just are elements, and this is database, scientific based. This is not like conjecture or his opinion. He's like, this is part of the conversation. And so, to your point, the way we think, like most men, of course, there's always gray, but the stats are relatively robust in supporting the difference that your biology, your sex, the way you think. Like there was I think it was actually a woman writer said, I don't misquote it if it was a woman or dude. I don't remember who wrote it, but they said for a woman, like sex specifically, for a woman, there has to be a reason for sex. For a man, there just has to be a place.
Yeah.
Right. And so that to deny that that's like true, just the way we are built biologically. And then he goes back to why those things are true. And it's a fascinating discussion. It's much more deep than boys and girls bathrooms and things of that. Like it's very, very profound and it's pretty cool read. So I'd encourage everybody to read it. But my point to that is understanding how our wives think and juggle and how we are maybe driven towards finish this. Even the difference there causes a lot of conflict. And at the end of the day, in my household, dude, like I've said this to my wife and we fight. I'm like, we're not on the same team. Like we're supposed to be on the same team. And she says it to me too. I'm not trying to take the, I'm like the high ground here, but one of the things that we often argue about is like we're on the same team. It's not
Yeah.
a competition. Like if we compete, it's to the detriment of everybody in this house, right? And we're both very competitive individuals, my wife and I. So
Yeah.
like there's a lot of that headbutting and it gets to that level of like, well, what did my wife made a
Yeah.
joke the
What
other
did
day
you do
talking to her
today?
friends. What'd you do today? I'm like, I'm not gonna answer that question. Like that's a setup. And I'm not gonna ask that question because it's a setup, right? It's never how was your day? It's what'd you accomplish? And so it's just an interesting perspective. If you understand the root of that question, then maybe you can diffuse and have a truly constructive conversation that's to the benefit of the family. And you, as the man, can also diversify your thought potentially and help to understand where she's coming from, but also to take some of that load off.
Yeah. Yeah. That you had mentioned kind of the topic of sex and the way we think differently. It reminds me of a book that I had read a long time ago. A Kinetic Man, a friend of ours, sent both of us a copy of The Vertical Marriage. It's a book by Dave and Ann Wilson. Really good book on going vertical with your marriage, going to God. One of the chapters though, it talks about it's talking about sex, but the idea of taking the load off, like the mental load, um, how we think differently. One of the things that he talks about is he uses actually I think it's she uses the mental picture of luggage. Men are very myopic. They're mission oriented, goal oriented. They have the task at hand. They're going to knock that task off before they go do anything else, right? They're going to carry one bag of luggage. In the book, he's talking about sex. Like they have sex on the brain. Like that's all they think about. I want to have sex. Let's do sex, right? And that's going to be on their brain all day long until it happens. Women, on the other hand, they carry multiple bags of luggage. They're volunteering at the school. They're making breakfast. They're doing lunches. They got work to do. They have volunteer projects. They have all these things. They got to be the psychologist to their best friend when she calls that they're going through a divorce. Like all these things that come up, and they're carrying all these loads all at the same time, all these bags, right? But all the man wants to do is have sex, right? Or all the man needs to do is put the groceries away and then make dinner for the kid. And that's where like all this headbutting comes from. Like when you start pointing fingers and your task list and comparison and what did you do today versus what I did today. And there's all these things that take place. And it's just how we think differently, right? Women say they're better multitaskers because they have all these plates, luggage. And so,
Hey, but be real question for you. Does your wife habitually not finish projects?
100%
Like
all the
when I'm
time.
walking around the house, I'm like, everything's like not everything. I in my mind, here's the point I want to make. In my mind, I'm like, okay, that's not done, that's not done, that's not done. Like, what? Like, can you finish one of those?
Well,
But and
yeah,
then she's like, okay, yeah, you finished that, but like, but what about this, and this? You didn't even start those things. I'm like, but yeah, but that's done.
that's
You
done.
started all these things, and none of them are done. Like, so now I got to finish these things.
What's the
But it's
book?
funny because it's not one is not better than the other,
No,
and we were created differently for different reasons, and there's, you can't, you go back to caveman days, you can't halfway do a hunt, right? Like the dudes go out and you got to kill the animal, you got to bring it back, but also you bring it back and it's not a very complete meal if all I do is bring it back and then I'm gonna cook that thing, right? Like you also have to cook the French fries and the veggies and make the salad. Like so, it's just funny how they're complementary, and I think understanding that and embracing it can make it that much better
yeah,
instead of being, because I know I have a tendency to be like whatever the thing is, to ruminate and to just focus on this thing and not take all the thing that annoys me and not take all the other things into consideration, right?
yeah,
On why, potentially why it is, and to be gracious, to have grace and empathy, and to truly love. You and I are very different too, right?
yeah,
And like some things you do drive me nuts. Like you're a checklist guy. And I'm like, but I'm talking big picture, dude. Like, can you just move past that? Like,
yeah,
I'm talking big picture. And you're like, yeah, but you said, I'm like, I know what I said, but I didn't mean what I said. I meant this other bigger picture. And so I think there's a level of grace to be extended when your teammates, because at the end of the day, just like a football team, you don't want the left tackle trying to throw the football. Like, you don't want that. Well, why would you want in your household a dynamic that is that ridiculous, right?
yeah,
Why do you want the quarterback trying to make a block? Like that's not going to be good. And so I think we just also lack grace to be able to be like, okay, like you're the left tackle, I'm the quarterback, right? Like how do we make this work really well? Because you can. It just we don't let it. I know I don't let it.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it goes just back to that team mentality, right? And understanding about each other, and maybe the quarterback can make that block for the wide receiver. Maybe the left tackle, um, you know, can go out for a pass. Just kidding. But
It's
maybe
trick play. It's the
trick play.
exception. It's just
Yeah. Maybe the husband can carry some more baggage, can take more of the load, can take some of those checklist items off of the woman's plate. Maybe the woman can try not to multitask and accomplish 10 things at once and end up not accomplishing any of them. And
but they're all
maybe
started. They're all
they're all started.
started.
They're all started.
No,
But
but
it's
and I
just an
guess with
interesting
the
thought.
with the team mentality of it though, it's not necessarily that you want that you change. You can totally take on additional roles. I think acknowledging those roles is really critical, and then you can embrace and take things on, and when you're operating in that way, like recently Erica, we bought a gym and that's her thing. Like she's fully engaged in it. It changed the whole dynamic. And something I went through, I was like, oh, great. Okay, so now I came home, I took care of the kids in the afternoon. Now I gotta make dinner. Like that was my going in
Yeah.
attitude. And then when I gave myself a little bit of like just gave myself a little bit of pause, and I was like, you know what? A couple of things I really enjoy is like I really enjoy cooking. And as soon as I just change that, I'm like, I'm not allowing myself to enjoy this thing because I want to be a victim. I want to be a victim of now I have to cook dinner. I actually enjoy it. This is like a
Yeah.
lot of fun. And I like folding laundry at night when everybody's asleep and just watching some like violent movies, right? Like watching Godfather. Like things I can't do, and nobody wants to do that with me. Like I enjoy some of that. I enjoy that occasionally. And so I think there's things that if we step back and you can allow yourself to take on different roles, and a lot of us just don't, we never get outside of the definition of a man should be a provider of blah, 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 like, right? If you don't get outside of that, you're allowing a very limited definition of what somebody else said you should be to limit your life and
Mm.
your joy. You don't even give yourself the opportunity to explore different things And there's also a joy that comes from supporting your spouse in whatever that thing is.
Yeah.
And being the one to initiate that, um, there's joy in that because you have no control whether or not somebody else is going to initiate it back for you. And so that's not the point. And part of being mature is not being a victim. And being mature is giving more than you get. And so there's in that, there's also great joy and benefit. Um, and ultimately, maybe you also do get some more of the things that you're passionate about, but maybe you find that you're passionate about giving, and there's a joy there that you just didn't know that you could achieve, right? And so it's pretty profound. But I'll tell you, like we all struggle with it. I struggled, and I still do. Like there are times when I allow myself to get bitter about something, then I have to step back and be like, dude, you're being a victim. Like that's all. That's really the root of it for me. Like I'm trying to be a victim in this scenario,
Yeah.
and why is that? There's something deeper there for me to figure out.
It's good. Reminds me of one of the exercises we do inside the mastermind about the roles we play and identifying those roles and taking action to define what success really looks like in those roles. It's a really profound exercise. It opens up your eyes to the roles that we play, as a man. And we're happy to give that out. If anyone's interested in going through that exercise, you can just send us an email. You can send us an email at takeaction@thekineticman.com, and you maybe put roles in the subject line. We'll send you the exercise, the little PDF, and go through that. It helps.
And if
Good
you
stuff,
don't write
man.
us an email and request it, it's because you're a giant victim and a baby man.
Be a real man. Know
Be
your
a real
role.
man. Know your role and shut your mouth. No, don't shut your mouth. Just know your role and be open to exploring and finding and potentially enjoying new roles.
I like it.
See ya.
Deuce.